If your movies feel quiet but still loud, your center channel is usually the reason, because it carries most of the dialogue, and it has to sound clear even when you're sitting off to the side. In this video, I'm counting down 7 of the best center channel speakers you can buy right now, what they do well, where they fall short, and which one I'd pick after real listening in an actual living room setup, not a perfect lab. Seven, Polk Signature Elite ES30. The ES30 is one of those center channels that immediately feels like a solid real speaker, not a plastic add-on you regret later. It uses a 1-inch Terraline dome tweeter with 2 5.25-inch dynamic balance drivers, and that classic Polk tuning leans smooth and easy to listen to for long sessions. On dialogue-heavy shows, voices come through naturally without that harsh S sound that can make you turn subtitles on. What I like most is how forgiving it is. If you're streaming compressed audio or watching YouTube, the ES30 doesn't punish you, it just cleans it up and makes it bigger. The power port design is also legit for a center channel. You get more punch and a sense of weight in male voices than you'd expect at this price, especially if you don't want to cross over too high to your sub. But once I pushed it harder, bigger action scenes, louder levels, and busy mixes, the ES30 started showing its limits. The mid-range can get slightly thick, like dialogue is clear but not razor carved out of the mix. It doesn't disappear into the room the way pricier centers do, and when a soundtrack gets dense, separation isn't its strongest skill. Placement is another thing to be careful about. Because it's rear-ported with Polk's power port, stuffing it deep into a tight cabinet can make bass feel a little boomy or closed in. When I pulled it forward so the back could breathe, it sounded noticeably cleaner and more controlled. Still, for the money, it's a dependable pick if you want a warmer, TV-friendly center that won't fatigue you. Just know it's more pleasant and full than hyper-detailed and surgical, and that's the trade-off at number 7. Number 6. Reference Premier RP504C2. The RP504C2 is the opposite vibe. It's built to be bold, dynamic, and loud with ease. You've got a 1-inch titanium LTS vented tweeter on a hybrid Tractrix horn and 4 5.25-inch cerametallic woofers, so it can throw dialogue across a room like it's using a megaphone in a good way. If you want that cinematic snap where voices feel forward and effects hit hard, this speaker delivers. In my testing, the first thing I noticed was intelligibility at lower volumes. Even when I watched late at night, whispers and quick lines stayed understandable. That high sensitivity also means you don't need an expensive receiver to get impact. It wakes up easily, and that makes it a great match for people running mid-tier AVRs. Now for the downside. Horn-loaded centers can be picky. In some rooms, especially brighter rooms with lots of hard surfaces, the RP504C2 can come off a bit intense in the upper mids. That's the exact frequency range where shouty dialogue lives. And if your seating is close or your room is reflective, you may find yourself EQing it down. It's also physically big and deep, and that matters more than people think. If your TV stand is shallow, this speaker can force awkward placement, and poor placement can hurt what you're paying for, especially if it ends up too low or shoved back. When I had it aligned properly and angled toward ear height, it sounded far more balanced. So I respect the RP504C2 for its power and clarity, but it's not automatically better for everyone. If you love a lively front row sound and watch lots of action movies, it can be a monster. If you're sensitive to brightness, or your room is already sharp sounding, you may prefer the smoother speakers higher on this list. 5. Polk Monitor XT35. The Monitor XT35 is the practical hero pick, especially if your number one problem is my center speaker blocks the TV. It's a slim, low-profile design, but Polk still packs in a 1-inch Terraline tweeter and 4 3-inch drivers, plus a cabinet that's sized to fit in setups where most center channels simply won't. For apartments, bedrooms, or clean living room installs, that shape alone is a huge win. In real listening, it's surprisingly crisp on speech. News anchors, podcasts, and everyday dialogue come through clean, and it does that without needing crazy volume. I also like that it's designed with mounting options in mind, so if you're doing wall mounting or a tight media console, it's a smoother install than most chunky centers. Where it doesn't compete with bigger boxes is fullness. Those smaller drivers can't move air the same way dual 5.25s or dual 6.5s can. So male voices don't have that chesty weight unless your crossover and sub-integration are dialed in. It sounds correct, but not as big or effortless as the larger speakers above it. Another thing I noticed, it's at its best in small to medium rooms and moderate volumes. When I tried to push it like a full theater center, big room, loud action, it stayed clear, but it didn't have that unlimited headroom feel. It's more about clean dialogue in a normal home setup than shaking the room. If your setup is constrained by space, the XT35 is a smart buy because it solves a real problem. It's not the center channel you buy to flex, it's the center channel you buy because it fits, it works, and it makes dialogue better immediately. 4. Klipsch R-52C. The R-52C is the budget-friendly way into that Klipsch big sound personality. You get a 1-inch aluminum LTS tweeter, a 90x90 Tractrix horn, and dual 5.25-inch spun copper IMG woofers, which is a serious driver layout for an affordable center. When you hit play on a movie, dialogue jumps out with energy, and that's exactly what many people want. In my experience, the R-52C is excellent for casual home theater, sports, Netflix, gaming, where you want voices to cut through without constantly riding the volume control. It also plays well in rooms where you sit a bit farther back, because that horn design projects sound in a direct, punchy way. It's not as refined as the reference Premier line, though. Compared to the RP504C2, the R-52C has less nuance. It gives you the words clearly, but you don't get the same layers in the mid-range. Background details and subtle vocal texture can feel more simplified. Placement is forgiving, which I appreciate. The closed-back design helps if you're putting it close to a wall or inside furniture, and for a lot of real homes, that matters more than audiophile perfection. I found it easier to integrate quickly than some rear-ported centers. If you want a straightforward, exciting center channel without spending a ton, the R-52C earns its spot. It's the kind of speaker that makes people say, "Wait, was the dialogue always this clear?" even before you tweak any settings. 3. KEF Q6 Meta. This is where the list starts feeling audiophile in the best way. The Q6 Meta is a 3-way center LCR speaker built around KEF's UniQ driver array with MAT, plus dual 6.5-inch low-frequency drivers. So instead of just being loud and clear, it's designed to be accurate and consistent across seats. When I listened from the side of the couch, dialogue stayed locked to the screen more than most traditional MTM-style centers. The UniQ approach is the big story. It helps the speaker behave more like a point source, so voices don't change character as much when you're off axis. That matters in real life when not everyone is in the perfect middle seat. And MAT is there to reduce unwanted sound from the rear of the tweeter, which contributes to that cleaner, less grainy top end. On movies, the Q6 Meta gives you clarity without shouting. You still get crisp consonants and easy-to-understand lines, but it doesn't feel like the speaker is leaning forward or trying too hard. It's the kind of center that makes a system sound more expensive because everything just blends smoothly. Bass and body are strong here too, thanks to those dual 6.5s. With a good crossover, voices have weight, and the speaker doesn't feel strained when scenes get chaotic. It also works as a center or in an LCR configuration, which is great if you're building a matched front stage. If you care about a wide sweet spot and a screen-anchored sound, the Q6 Meta is a serious step up. It's not only about volume or excitement, it's about making the whole front soundstage feel coherent. Number 2. SVS Ultra Evolution. The SVS Ultra Evolution Center is a technical, purpose-built dialogue machine. It's a 3-way design with a 1-inch diamond-coated tweeter, a dedicated 4.5-inch mid-range driver, and dual 6.5-inch woofers, so the speaker can hand off frequencies in a way that keeps voices clean even when effects get heavy. In my testing, it handled busy mixes with impressive composure. That dedicated mid-range driver is a big deal because dialogue lives in the mid-range. Instead of asking the woofers to do too much, the Ultra Evolution isolates vocal detail, and the result is a center channel that keeps voices intelligible without turning them edgy. The tweeter design is also built for extended highs and clarity, which helps with air and presence. One thing that stood out to me was how stable it sounded across different content types. Movies, games, even live concerts, there was a consistent sense of control, like the speaker wasn't changing personalities. SVS also leans into dispersion and off-axis performance with cabinet and baffle choices that reduce diffraction, so it stays clean when you're not sitting dead center. It's not a tiny speaker, and it deserves some breathing room. If you jam it into a tight cabinet space, you're limiting what it can do, especially in how it throws sound into the room. When I gave it a proper placement, front edge of the stand, aimed correctly, it sounded more open and effortless. If you want a center channel that prioritizes dialogue realism but still hits hard when explosions happen, the Ultra Evolution is a near flagship experience. It's the kind of speaker that makes you notice bad mixes, because it's revealing enough to show them. Number 1. KEF R6 Meta. The KEF R6 Meta takes what's great about the Q series and pushes it into reference territory. It uses the 12th generation UniQ driver array with matte for a matched, high-end front stage feel, plus two 6.5-inch hybrid aluminum bass drivers for authority. When I put it under a screen and ran a few favorite scenes, voices snapped into place with that clean, effortless realism you normally expect from much more expensive setups. The biggest upgrade here is refinement. You get detail, but it's not sharp. You get clarity, but it's not pushed. Dialogue sounds like a person in a space, not a recording coming from a box. And that's what separates great centers from merely loud ones. And because UniQ helps with dispersion, the sweet spot feels wider, so more people get the same experience. What surprised me is how well it handles quiet scenes. Some speakers are impressive only when they're blasting. The R6 Meta stays articulate at low volume, so you don't lose meaning when characters whisper or talk under music. That's where Matt helps keep the high frequencies clean and controlled instead of splashy. When the movie gets big, the R6 Meta doesn't collapse. It keeps separation between dialogue, effects, and music, so the center doesn't just become a wall of sound. With the right crossover to a sub, it feels like the screen itself is speaking, clean, anchored, and consistent. If you're building a serious home theater and the center channel is the one speaker you refuse to compromise on, this is my number one. It's not only clear, it's naturally clear, across seats, across volumes, across content, and that's what makes it a true endgame style center.